Welcome to Cloud Dialogues. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to Cloud Dialogues, everybody. We are back. We are back with our three-part series for IWD, which I'm super excited about. And obviously, I've got Matt with me as usual. Matt, hi.
Hi, welcome
And
everyone. Hello
we
again.
have also a special guest with us, Yasmin Benjamin, which
Hi, thanks for having
I'm
me on.
super excited. Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm super excited to have you on the show. So thank you so much for taking the time. For anybody that missed, so we're doing a three-part series for IWD. So what I really wanted to do over the next few weeks was to take the time to elevate and talk about and with some of our women experts on cloud transformation. So starting off with part one today, which is about women leading the cloud. Super excited to have Yasmin with us. Yasmin's the head of cloud and finance. Yasmin, do you want to introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about your journey?
Yes, my name is Yasmin Benjamin. Currently kind of work within the cloud and AI space, mostly within the finance sector and sometimes public sector also. Um, I feel like my journey into the cloud was very different. When I kind of was coming up in my career, there wasn't anything called a DevOps title. It was more of a mythology that you would work towards. So there were different mythologies such as, ITIL, TOGAF, Prince 2, and then there was DevOps. And I remember literally, I've actually been to Australia. That's where I done my first big migration project in Melbourne. I originally got a job there as a third level systems engineer. And then there was like a big talk about, DevOps, and that was kind of like going crazy in Australia. And when I came back, my manager introduced me as the DevOps engineer. I was like, me? Like, oh, okay, that's weird. And literally since then, which was about 2019, I've just been kind of rolling with it. Like, okay. But yeah, that's my journey. But I actually done my undergrad in AI, artificial intelligence and robotics.
Wow.
Purely just for the love of Star Wars. I literally was like, you know what, I've had enough. Yeah, literally
Oh,
like,
look.
Oh my goodness, Matt's wearing an Empire Strikes Back shirt. That's amazing. And your
yeah.
your journey is so
I,
impressive. Like, and we'll talk more about this. I'm excited to dive into this because you've gone from like super deep technical to leadership, which I think is massively impressive. Definitely excited to dig into that more.
Thank you.
Um, Awesome. All right, shall we step into the news, Matt? What have we got first up? What's on in the news?
yes, what we've got. Well, it seems like there's a lot of quantum computing about all of a sudden because there was Google back in December
Oh,
released Willow, and that's a
Is that a
name I can
chip?
actually say. And
That
then
was a
we've
chip.
got, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep, Willow quantum chip. Yep. And then there's Microsoft with, but we were trying to figure out how to say this before we started recording.
M-
Is it Majorana maybe, or I don't know,
Margarana. That
something
was
like
my
that.
guess. Probably
So they
wrong.
released theirs February
So
19,
this
so
is
it was like
like
2 weeks ago.
AWS's response to
And then,
Microsoft's this
yeah, and then AWS did
Ocelot.
Ocelot.
So that's
Ocelot.
the main. Obviously, I think a couple of weeks ago we spoke about the Microsoft
Yeah,
chip, and now AWS is obviously
yeah.
following up with theirs. Um, Yasmin, you probably know more about this than we do.
And
yeah, I've been seeing it all over,
yeah,
I guess the tech world and the tech news. I literally was like, oh, Manjaro, isn't that like a slimming injection thing? I really just feel like maybe okay,
Ozempic.
but Microsoft released theirs first. It essentially is based on topology, which is essentially kind of spreading out the topology within a qubit, which should make it easier to digest or something
Oh.
like that. I don't think it's something where we're gonna like wake up next week and we're gonna
Mm,
have like quantum computers or the concepts installed, but I feel like we're still deep in the research stage.
mm.
I'm actually doing my PhD in maths and specializing in quantum computing, focusing on topological analysis. So
Wow.
I'm very excited to, and hopefully in about 5 years' time, I can be like, okay, I'm a quantum head of quantum. I don't know, maybe head of
Wow.
yeah,
a
quantum
quantum
person.
person. Yeah.
I think there's quite a lot of
Amazing.
exciting things.
Well, it'll be a
Yeah,
job that
that's the
doesn't even
yeah,
exist yet, right?
absolutely. I mean, we've gone from now quantum computing that will probably be a job in about 5 years kids are learning Python in nursery or Scratch. Robots are taking over. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on.
AWS, they're pitching reducing error correction by 90%. I guess these things, because there's so many, rather than ones and zeros and dealing with qubits, I guess there's a lot of room for error, and there has to be probably new algorithms, made to minimize errors and all that sort of stuff. So it's probably a huge sort of research area. And I know IBM's been doing it for 10 years or something almost.
Interesting.
And the cloud providers have actually, and there's obviously other quantum chip makers which
NVIDIA
provide their offerings in AWS and Microsoft as well. I don't know if
Intel.
NVIDIA do, but there are
I'm
a
showing
few
my lack of
others.
knowledge in this space. I wonder if
Yeah.
the incoming of quantum computing will be as I don't want to say sudden, as immediately impactful when it does become more usable, as we are really experiencing right now with AI, because we had cloud and then AI, and then is the next thing going to be quantum computing?
I think so. I'm quite excited to see where it would be, but I don't think it would be for a couple of years, maybe a decade, before we'll start to see the actual real effects of even the collaboration of AI and quantum. But I think when that does happen, it probably would be expressed through a ChatGPT-ish kind of model, just to see, fast processing times and doing everything at once, I guess.
Interesting.
And sort of in that vein, I did see an article soon after the Microsoft announcement on the BBC saying, will quantum computers disrupt critical infrastructure? And basically, there's certain assumptions around how long it takes to decrypt things that are encrypted, and there's probably other, things that classical computing can't do today that maybe quantum computing will be able to do, and maybe that'll, disrupt, things that we do. That's not an overnight thing, but over time, there could be some sort of, I think there'll be a lot of research in this area. And also Australian government put out guidelines in December around specific algorithms that you can't use after 2030.
Wow.
So that's only, 5 years away.
That seems quite forward thinking.
I like that. I think so.
That seems unusual for the Australian government.
Unusual for the Australian government, gotta say.
I mean, it would be very unusual. I mean, I feel like, that seems okay. I feel like I need to dig into this. I think I need to write an article on this. I'm gonna have to research that. Okay, what else did we have, Matt?
We have. Skype is going away. So people still use Skype, and obviously it was big during COVID as well.
Crazy.
But apparently no one uses it anymore, or Microsoft don't want to support it, or whatever. I'm not sure. Well, I guess Teams is now available for personal use. That might be the driver. I'm not sure. But Skype goes away on the 5th of May.
Bye-bye, Skype.
Year. So it's only, 3 months away? 2 months away. Also Chime. So Amazon are deprecating Chime finally. So you're a Chime lover.
It had some good features. I mean, admittedly, I haven't used it since my time at AWS, but it had some good features. Like, it had some smart things that they had built into it. Like, I remember before they had this machine learning that cut through the background noise. So it was really good at filtering out background noise, things like that, which is amazing when you're easily distracted like me, right? Sometimes the background noise on Teams is wild. Like, I was on a couple of calls yesterday and I was like, this is unlistenable. Like, I can't even understand. I can't understand what's going on.
I know the worst thing is when people are in the office, right? And then if you're in an open plan office, that is awful.
Funny story. I was sat in the office next to my partner yesterday, and we were having this argument about whether it was me or whether it was him. He'll probably listen to this.
So COVID ish.
He'll probably listen to this and be like, you're talking about me on the podcast. It's like, yes, we were arguing about. When I say my partner, I mean like the partner at work, like my boss.
Right.
My partner.
Wow. I like that. Let's always on.
Funny. Okay, all right. Chime is gone. Bye, Chime. And there's some Chinese competition to Starlink. I noticed as well that I saw in the Australian news, that the NBN is going with Amazon instead of Starlink for their, or something like that. And I was like, what? That's interesting. So just related to the whole Chinese competition to Starlink.
Oh, I didn't see that
Yeah.
one. That's very
I don't know
interesting.
exactly what
Yeah,
yes,
the
NBN,
same.
the Australian Financial Review reported the NBN Co set to choose Amazon over Musk's.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't surprise me because Amazon have probably been pitching for it for a
I'd
while,
say
I would guess.
they're sitting quite comfortably
Um,
close to the Australian government. That's all I'll say on that.
yeah. And also they did a pilot in Australia as well.
Oh,
I
really?
think it was last year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Amazon. Yeah. Yep. I'm pretty sure there was a pilot done. I think they mentioned it at Summit last
Is this
year.
like the
So
Chinese
the sh-
rival? Have they
the-
like stolen everything off a competitor and then just like they did with DeepSeek?
I don't know. Well, the Chinese one's called
Space Sail,
Space
yeah.
Sail.
That's a
These
cute
names
name.
are not very inventive. It's like they've gone to
Very cute.
ChatGPT to get a name.
ChatGPT to get a name. Yeah.
Who
I
would
don't
do that,
know.
Georgia? And
Yeah,
that's
I
partly
think
how
it
we got
is.
this
I think it
podcast
is
name.
actually. We're not very creative.
But anyway, that's interesting. There might even be other competitors for, I guess, space and space internet, I guess, could be a big thing. So we'll see. Watch this space. The only other article I had was around the your iPhone has got less secure due to the UK government saying to Apple, give us a backdoor, and Apple went,
Yeah.
no. And Apple went, no, I'm not giving you a backdoor. We're just going to take away the good encryption. So in the UK, you don't get the good full end-to-end encryption now for your backups unless it was already configured
Interesting.
on your phone.
I don't know that I like that.
So,
Like,
yeah, I'm wondering if other governments are going to use that, take that, try and do the same thing, but we'll see. And related to that, Signal are going to
Because they
exit
can't.
Sweden. Well, would exit Sweden rather than
Right,
diluting message
right.
security. So all these messaging providers and would prefer to keep people's data private, which is kind of their job, right? And it's especially Signal, that's kind of their thing, their
It's whole value
differentiator,
proposition.
unlike Telegram, which we won't discuss. Exactly. It seems that they've indicated that they'd exit Sweden if Sweden goes ahead with wanting a backdoor. So that's not great. So I think that's kind of it. And there was a summary, there's an article summary, maybe we'll put it in the show notes, around all the tech layoffs this year, which has been a lot for the last 12 months.
I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon.
Oh, God.
I mean, almost about my advice to people coming in or like people worried about and it's an unfortunate world that we live in. I feel sorry for people that are younger than me. You know, have another hustle, do something else outside of your work. Always will be working on your personal brand in the background, and it's who you know, not what you know, realistically. I've seen some highly incompetent people in highly paid positions, and that's how they get there, right? Yeah,
we've all seen that.
Depressingly bad.
It's awful.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So I think is that the news?
That's the news that I had.
Okay. Wonderful.
I think so. The news.
All right. Let's move into the first part of our IWD series, Women Leading the Cloud. Yasmin, I know we've spoken a little bit about your journey, but I'd love to hear from your perspective some of the different challenges that you've experienced as a woman coming into tech, and especially because you're so obviously highly technical and competent and obviously a strong leader. So I have no doubt that you have overcome lots of challenges to get where you are. So please give us some insight.
Where do I start? I think going to leadership, as a woman in tech, I started my journey being very hands-on, being very technical, but I'm in a leadership position or I'm approached for leadership opportunity. I've never really felt like it was safe to not be technical. So I'm still quite technically green and keeping up to date with new technological advancements. And I still keep my ear quite close to the ground with like engineers, even at work. And that's because I guess when you make leadership so young, so I'm still in my early 30s, I've got, I guess, people retire around 60. So it's like, if I'm here now, where do I go? So I still kind of keep my hands green to kind of keep that aspect or that career door open. Some of the challenges I face, I guess, in leadership in tech, and obviously would be sexism. That can be a thing. People maybe not believing that you can be a woman in tech and somewhat be highly competent. Different cultures kind of, showcase different things. But I would say in the UK so far, it's been pretty cool. Another thing is kind of just having to witness many other women that want to go into leadership kind of siloed by, becoming mothers. There's the motherhood penalty in the aspect. I have a daughter. I've never felt like I've been able to, I guess, take a maternity break. The thought of not working makes me feel very, very anxious. I had my second child last year, so she's 1 year old. And in a year, we're now onto quantum, like we were just on the cloud, So certain aspects like that can be quite scary. But yeah, I think the great thing of what I've done to combat those challenges is literally just building a community and kind of ungaslighting myself that, you're not the only one that has a level of insecurity about going back into the workforce or even just being a woman in senior leadership. There isn't as much representation as well. So it's kind of having that pressure to, I guess, break glass ceilings and also bring other people along the way. But I think when it comes to women in leadership, it's more so a confidence thing. I definitely believe that, when you are working in tech, you have to be very thick-skinned because people can easily spot the bullshit. It's having the ability to kind of think on the spot, explain technical aspects in layman terms. So yeah, it's been a joyride, I would say.
I feel similarly what you're saying about community. I think it's really important. And I think it's something that's, I don't know about you, for me, it's not something that I feel that I have on a day to day. It's something that you have to kind of like go and actually I had a really candid conversation with another few women and some of them quite senior the other day. And, just talking about some of the challenges. And it was so like refreshing. Like it really gave me energy back. Like it can be sometimes hard, especially when you're maybe like the only woman in the room and you're maybe more senior than a lot of other people. It does feel kind of like isolating in a way, I think.
Yeah.
I guess to get to your position where you are now, your leadership must be pretty supportive, like in general, to be able to give you this opportunity.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think, going into leadership for me, the one thing I done was never try to be anyone else and just bring my authentic self to work. I'm very heavily into kind of like spirituality, and I do feel like there's a lot of masculine energy in tech. So I think just having that ability to be a woman, but lean into my, I guess, somewhat motherly or feminine side, clearly, worked. I'm not hierarchical despite the title in that aspect. So I have very much of an open door policy. I know how daunting tech could be. I know how daunting it can be, especially working as a woman. So I always try to create an environment where it's kind of like, if you want, don't feel afraid if you don't know how to do certain things or ask certain questions. So, even with my leadership style, I'm very heavy on passing on the baton, going into companies, knowing that they have technical debt. And if I've been employed to remove all that technical debt, it's documenting, creating knowledge-based articles, X, Y, and Z, because I just have a big thing of not wanting people to feel blindsided or caught out. So I think I'm, have a very like human-centric approach to leadership, and it's not a dictatorship in that aspect. It's just a job,
That's right. And the authentic self is really important, especially in leaders today, because there's so many that I've met that aren't. And you can see through that, right? So being yourself is super important.
I feel like there's and without trying to, obviously it's not our job as women to be the only ones bringing like empathy and care into the work environment. But I think it's something that a lot of people can learn from the women in their environment, right? It's like, how can we lead with more empathy? I always see it as an opportunity, and like even for more senior men to learn from their more junior women. It's like I see, young women in senior, young and older women in junior and more senior roles, leading with so much empathy. It's such a great example for everybody, and I think that's something definitely that we can learn from. As much as it's not, without saying that it's obviously not our job to do that just because we are women, right? Like it's not your job to do that just because you are a woman. But I think it's definitely something that can be learned.
That's the natural sort of diversity that comes out, right?
No, exactly. And that's why diversity is so important. And I get really frustrated by that, or the whole discussion around DEI is like that. It's like DEI is about helping people get to positions where they are eligible for roles, where we have more men and women, all people have the opportunity, right? It's not
Yeah.
about putting people that are unqualified into roles.
No.
Yeah, it's all the rhetoric around it's frustrating. I don't know whether you have any take on that, Yasmin.
Yeah, I think when it comes to DEI, initiatives, it ranges across lots of things, people of ethnic minorities, LGBTQ, neurodiversity, women.
Yes.
I think there has been, like you said, a rhetoric where we're just giving people the job if they're different. And I've always fought against that notion because I'm pretty sure multi-million-dollar companies are not going to be like, hey, you're a lady on the street, fancy being a leader today? Like, you have to have the qualification. It's looking at the tech market that we're in, looking at the jobs that are in tech, recognizing that all of the leaders look a certain way, and giving people that don't look that way, who are qualified, a chance to take on those roles. Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing that does annoy me. Like DEI isn't just picking up people on the street that happen to be, hey, you're LGBTQ, fancy a job today? Like, no, you have to be qualified. So it's just about pushing people to the front who in many ways wouldn't have had opportunities to be there due to stigma or any other issues.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's about giving people pathways, right? So people that have potential can have the same pathways as everybody else. And then the other thing that I really was excited to talk to you about, I feel like you're so cutting edge, is around putting your like cloud and finance hat on. Like, what are the things going on in like how is innovation happening in cloud and finance? Like, I really would love to hear from you, like some of the things that you're working on and hearing from different organizations and executives, like what's going on in that space.
So I would say, I think working within the cloud and finance can be quite tricky because a lot of the cloud environments are what we call legacy environments.
Yes.
And as you can imagine, you're working within finance, a legacy environment. Some companies are still on disk and tapes, which is like back in the day. We still have some employers or within the finance space that understand the power of digital and cloud transformation, but because they hold so much data and there's a security risk, they are quite sensitive about going onto the cloud. So I think the tricky thing for me, or something that I also enjoy, is the understanding of implementing cloud migration doesn't just have to be done all in one go. It's called a migration for a reason. And what I've noticed is that with lots of my cloud clients, it's all about building trust within the finance space. What's going to happen to your data? How do we align to your compliance and legalities? So it would be like hosting workshops with different partners, whereas in different industries, it would be you want a cloud migration, talk to a CTO and at most a CISO. But when you're working with banking or finance, there's so many kind of like hoops to jump through. Also, finance, they would like to spend money. So you're not just doing a cloud migration piece, you're doing a lift and shift. You're overlooking their whole technical infrastructure ecosystem. You're looking at aligning to their compliance. Where does their data go? So doing a cloud readiness assessment in a deeper way. You're also looking at cost optimization, FinOps. So it's quite an expensive piece of work, but it's quite a long journey as well. Quite a lot of handholding.
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like it's very difficult, especially with customers, because I would imagine most financial services customers, their mainframe is still on premise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that, like, I'm guessing that most of them are, and I suspect will be for a long time, managing hybrid cloud environments as a result of that.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't think I've come across a bank that's strict on one cloud platform. So most of my cloud, I guess, finance clients is always hybrid.
Yeah.
Even just to kind of increase scalability or high availability and just security in that aspect. Yeah, it's usually kind of a hybrid routine. Usually the common ones are Azure and AWS.
From my experience, like I haven't done a huge amount of banking customers myself, but I know they have a lot of 30 or more years of legacy like apps.
It's
and
their
stuff,
baby.
and a lot of them can't be moved, and exactly. It's like you're trying to move everything while they're trying to run their business, and it's a whole different level of complexity, especially with the mainframes.
Sorry, I'm talking on mute. I'm assuming
Oh,
that
you're muted.
because there would be some financial services organizations that were born on cloud, not the big banks, but there would be some,
Challenger
right?
There
banks.
is.
Yeah, like maybe the new challenger banks like the Starlings and the Monzos,
Wise and stuff.
something adjacent to that.
Yeah, we have one. We have one called Up in Australia, and they're
really?
all on Google Cloud.
I think the newer ones that kind
so-
of had the opportunity to build with the cloud from the ground up. But if you're talking about our banks, especially in the UK, been here for hundreds of years, right? And they've gone through that, the technological advancements with growing the bank, lots of legacy disc and tapes. I remember hearing a joke that some of the leaders with finance still use RSA tokens. I don't know if anyone remembers those.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I used to
remember
play
them.
technical, like with the little fake USB, like, yeah, got your token. So, yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I didn't know people still use them.
hopefully it was a joke, but yeah.
How is financial services using AI? Like, what are you seeing in the market? Like, how are they doing that? And like, how are they executing on that?
So a lot of financial companies are using AI. Mostly I've seen the use of chatbots, which we can argue is AI or not. I've also seen quite a lot of banks use AI with other departments. So mostly with their data team handling mortgage requests and looking at how we can automate mortgage request responses. Copilot Studio also is great for doing that, using different GCP as well, like Vertex AI and RAG for factual grounding, as you have the ability to use, external resources like Google Docs and the internet to help build your chatbot responses. So yeah, I think it's more so around chatbots and the kind of ingestion and regurgitation, if that makes sense, of data.
I wish the chatbots I used
Yeah.
were that smart, because I think there's two levels of chatbots, right? There's the old school one that can, handle 3 different things and
Yeah.
usually get it wrong, or the new style ones. And if they've got a proper RAG behind them and using a proper LLM, they should be able to answer all your questions pretty easily.
So that's what
and
so
everyone
I think
moves on.
they're using AI in the form of RAGs, which I can just go into a bit, because I'm like, if you're going to say that a chatbot is AI instead of a secret person behind the screen.
That's right. Some person answering all
Yeah,
their
I would
It's
say
taking me
responses.
back to Amazon Fresh. Remember Amazon Fresh?
Oh, I remember that.
They said it was machine learning, but it was actually people offshore. Just
Yes,
like,
Yeah,
that's right.
exactly. But yeah, I would say RAG
That was funny.
implementations of just using factual data, reducing how do we kind of ingest your data from what you have, I don't know, using BigQuery or Vertex AI, and ensure that the data that we have is factual, and also reducing the rate of hallucinations. So I think that's the kind of like the tick box to, are we using AI correctly within banking that I've seen.
Are there any LLMs specifically designed?
No,
for
there's
banking?
one's designed for like medicine GCP, one called Med Palm or Palm 2 or something, for essentially for GCP for like the healthcare industry.
Yep.
Yasmin, do you want to explain what RAG is?
Oh, you got me. RAG.
That's a good idea.
So retrieval augmentative generation. It's essentially, I wouldn't say a tool, but kind of like a process that is used to ensure that there is a lower rate of hallucination, which AI can do. And it also provides high accuracy and factual grounding. So if I were to a chatbot, how many users are in your company? It can say 5. But when we start to implement the concept of RAG, they're not just answering that it's 5, it would also have the ability to maybe input their name of the people, the department that they work in, and their work productivity, because we can now relate external or internal resources to their database. So essentially, RAG has the ability to provide a factual response that has a higher level of accuracy based on the level of information that we are feeding into it in that aspect. So if you are to work with quite a lot of companies that have a lot of data, you'll notice that RAG is something that I wouldn't say it's a big thing, but it's probably very important to implement, especially if you are looking to build your Gen AI ops strategy as well.
And Yasmin, what's the data foundation behind that? Like, is there like, because I feel like a lot of organizations struggle with this, is like, how do we actually kind of manage our data in a way that enables AI workloads? How are they doing that? Across financial services, like, what are you seeing as
Yeah.
some of the techniques and architectures that customers are using?
So I think just across kind of implementing AI or Gen AI strategy, model selection and training. So kind of teaching, them on, what kind of models are we going to use, like GPT, Llama, especially for like natural language processes, looking at different aspects of distributed training in that aspect as well, and optimizing technique. But mostly, especially when dealing with banking and having quite a lot of data, it would be going into, quite a lot of just continuous learning and monitoring of the data that we have, data engineering, pre-processing. So using something called like Hugging Face. Don't know if
Oh,
anyone,
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's quite a lot, but I think it's more so evaluating, how we would implement that Gen AI. So kind of like RAG, and then maybe using GCP versus AI for like matching, BigQuery as well. So there's just a whole lot of things that we can do to kind of like evaluate or implement that to have a high quality production response.
I can imagine that a lot of financial services customers managing the data that's actually informing the AI would be one of the biggest challenges, because they have so much legacy data in different
Yeah.
systems.
So it's one thing to kind of implement data into kind of like a database to enable RAG, but then when you have data, there's what we call structured and unstructured data. So that you kind
Yes.
of have to go through an aggregating and scraping of, okay, we're saying this data is factual, but is it structured in the right way? We're saying this data is factual, but is it up to date? So kind of adding real time updating, so constantly, update the model without retraining the model. There's a lot that kind of goes on.
I saw something the other day, you just triggered my memory. I saw an article the other day on LinkedIn about how there was an organization that I can't remember which one. I think it was one of those companies that has the scooters, the scooters that people pick up on the side of the street and just ride off. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I
Yeah,
like
not
the
Lime. It was
Lime
another one, I
scooters.
think. Basically, what they were saying is they had misreported some of their finances a couple of years ago. And basically, that was the result of them not having their data in order. And my thought was, I wonder if this will be, obviously it's something that I'm sure it's something that you have like concerns over when you're working with your customers, Yasmin. Like, how do you think about that when you work with your customers and you help them to use AI? What is the mental model in relation to like financial reporting? And obviously the accuracy of that is paramount.
I think it's more so just ensuring that we can do all these fun and sexy things with, AI, implement the RAGs and X, Y, and Z, but it's all about the safety of the data as well, being compliant, because we are not just dealing with data. The data is data from people. So like having to put into mindset, GDPR and X, Y, and Z, and that's where a lot of the blocker is, so how do we kind of train our AI models? But so for instance, a lot of banks won't allow you to use ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to create your own internal sandbox environment to kind of use people's data in aspects. So there's a lot of compliance and ethics to come on board. So I'm really not surprised, but happy that Australia has ethics around that in regards to the algorithms that they create.
Just a
Yeah.
final thing on the Gen AI thing. I think 2025 is a year of
Yeah.
agentic AI. So agents, you'll be able to do things. So I think it kind of makes, and I think financial services is probably a good place for this, right? Because people are calling all the time to get things done. Having agents that do these things will make, the systems a lot faster. But again, it comes back to the data. So I think all these things that have been going on for the last year or two, they're probably going to accelerate a little bit this year, I suspect, because they'll probably want to get on the act. Have you heard of anyone using agentic AI in financial service yet, or it might be a bit too early?
No, I haven't.
It'll be interesting to see how organizations, especially organizations that are highly regulated, like banks, sort of take up that technology and how long it takes. I think will be interesting to see. And like how, I guess I'm always
Banks are
interested in
always
the risk
behind though.
tolerance. Yeah, no, I know. I'm always interested in their risk tolerance though, like, because it seems
They
like
don't.
there's,
S- yeah.
it seems like in some ways there's a lot of tolerance for risk, and then in other ways there's just none at all. It's quite interesting. It's almost like polarizing.
Yeah, but I think institutions don't have as much of an appetite for risk, which I can understand. So they're always quite behind. So I've always say if you're a true techie and you want to be kind of like cutting edge, most of my friends are like deep core machine learning engineers, hardly work for banks because there's just so many
Yeah.
Yeah.
blockers and there's nowhere to
Okay.
play essentially. So
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it wouldn't be rewarding.
Interesting. What else did we have on the list that we wanted to talk about at a point? Yasmin, I know we spoke a little bit about skills and skills that women need to have.
yeah.
And I think one point you made, I think it's like, I know you're super technical naturally. I feel like in a lot of ways, women need to be, unfortunately,
Risk-
more across the
Yeah.
technicalities of what's going on in, even if they're in non-technical roles. Just because there is that, you know, almost like a tendency for people to question what we're saying. Thoughts?
No, I agree. I mean, when I was kind of coming up in my career, I feel like I went down a bit more of a traditional path of service desk, third line infrastructure,
Mm,
DevOps,
mm,
implementation
mm,
with a bit. So
mm,
I had to like go up my career and use all the methodologies, pass my Prince 2, my ISO. Then I guess now respectfully, people can be like product engineers and project managers, but when I was in my career traditionally, you only really had the ability to be a project manager if you had a tenure of being technical.
yeah,
Because in order to
yeah,
manage projects, you need to kind of know the backbone of the project you're managing. So in a way,
mm,
you were a project manager, but you also would understand if something technically were to go wrong and you could still roll up your sleeves to get technical. Now people, I think, ever since the COVID technical boom, are just jumping into roles saying, yep, I'm a project manager. And even though that's fine because I guess we can say some women aren't naturally wanting to be technical or they find it quite
mm,
daunting. What's happened now, especially with all the layoffs, is that companies like, hold on, we've got one product, three product managers, three project managers, and we've got a technical service delivery. The technical service delivery person, we can just upskill them in understanding how to move Jira tickets or give them a Scrum
mm,
qualification. So we've kind of split up lots of one role into one. When I was a service delivery manager, I was doing the stand-up meetings, looking at the company's metrics. If needed be, if there was a P1 having to be technical, that's about three jobs in one. But now that's just split
mm,
across. So when we have all these layoffs, because we're realizing that, oh, how many project managers do we need? How many scrum masters, do we need? And yeah, so I think in one hand, non-technical jobs did give a lot of women the gateway into entering tech,
mm,
especially the financial benefits of it without having to go through that tenor. But now, what I'm really focused on is saying, you want to be a project manager, get your AWS solutions architect. You want to be
yeah.
a scrum master, get your Azure, because you need to kind of understand what you're talking about. And yeah, look, yeah, that's what personally I think.
No, I agree. And I feel like women that are able to, and probably just people in general as well, right? But I think
Yeah.
more specifically, women are rated more harshly
Yeah.
in general. I think we need to understand what's going on. I think that's definitely the value that I've brought to a lot of rooms over my career. Like, I remember specifically, in my time at Amazon, I was in a room with like a bunch of not non-technical people and one like highly technical person, and they were trying to like explain something, and I was like, I stopped everyone and I was like, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, to the engineer, is this what you're trying to say? And they were like, yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think that's the value that you need to be able to bring, is you need to understand, even if you're not an engineer, even if you need to understand
Yeah.
what's going on at a reasonably detailed level in order to be able to manage the
Explain
projects
technical
and work.
issues in
Yes,
layman.
and you need to be able to explain reasoning, right? Like,
Yeah.
reasoning is really important in everything that we do. And if you don't fundamentally understand what's going on technically, you're going to struggle with the reasoning. So I think that's one thing. But in terms of skills, like, do you have any other thoughts about like what other things do you think that are really important for women to have in terms of their skill sets in this industry?
I think it's important to be technically adept, maybe on the not necessarily personality level, but just characteristics. It moves very quickly and it feels sometimes like you're caught in a whirlwind. And I know for
Yeah,
myself that adds to quite a lot of women's anxiety, especially if we take career breaks because of maternity. You come back and everything's changed again and again and
change.
again and
Yeah,
again. It's kind of just having to keep up to date with, and lots of networking events. I think that's good. But yeah, the skills thing, I would just say keep technical, keep your certifications up to date, and find yourself a mentor as well. Look at somebody in the industry, even if if it's a guy, just to kind of what we call rubber duck off. I love that term so much. Just the rubber duck off.
What does that mean? I haven't heard that. No,
I haven't heard
explain
that
that.
term.
Explain the rubber duck.
Ye-
Yasmin, what's the rubber
Yeah,
duck?
yeah. So rubber ducking is basically, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you're working on a piece of code for like hours and hours, and the words start to jumble like the Matrix. You're like, I
Yes.
don't know what's going on anymore. Rubber ducking is essentially getting another pair of eyes to do that. So when we think of a rubber
Okay.
duck, it's like, I guess, a yellow rubber duck
Uh,
that just sits on your, like, it's kind of like a fidget in that aspect. Yeah. Just get another pair of eyes.
yeah, fidget toy. Yeah,
I love that. One other thing I think you
cool. That's
mentioned
very,
there, and I think this is
very
really
cool.
important, is I was talking to another woman recently, quite senior in tech as well, and one of the things that she was saying is that a lot of the time as women, we're spinning our wheels trying to help lift up other women because we feel like it's our duty. But where are the men? Like the men have a role here as well, right? Yeah, I think like as the more we can, like every day I kind of, or, often I see opportunity where there are executives that are engaged and like male executives that are engaged and are keen to support. But I think a lot of the time they feel out of their depth and they don't know what to do. So I think
Yeah.
where we can, as women, pull men into that are engaged and be like, yes, help us, because
Yeah.
otherwise we're
Be an
just spinning our
ally.
wheels at 120% already because we're already working harder than everybody else, right?
I
And then we're
remember
trying to lift
there
other
yeah.
women up.
I remember there was a point where I was so like, I just never stopped my International Women's Day work. And it became like a second job
Yeah.
at work.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yes.
okay, so now it's like, I'm working for this company, I'm uplifting women, I'm doing a certification drive. And these are things that all love. I'm like, my like resource utilization is going low. I actually have a job. So I kind of have to stop. But so yeah, a lot of companies, PwC is great at that shit, bringing women up with them. Yeah. So I'll shout out to PwC. They're amazing.
Yeah. And similarly, I feel about Capgemini is, you know, our executives are engaged and keen to support and are like listening, which is, and yeah. Awesome. We're almost at the end of our session. Yasmin, again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me as well as, our Cloud Dialogues community. So thank you. Before we do sign off, one piece of advice that you have for women coming into tech, but also like specifically if there's anything on the financial services and tech, then by all means.
Coming into tech, don't do it. Run. No
It's
way.
my advice too.
So I would say, coming into tech, one piece of advice I would give myself is I would say be a bit more easy on myself. I've always felt quite conflicted because working in tech is not just a job for me. It generally is my passion. Sometimes I feel like I'm just paid to do a hobby. It's okay to, if you're not passionate about tech, don't do it. Because it's literally like being paid to go to school. It can be quite up and down in that aspect. Another piece of advice I'd give myself is make sure you find mentorship and allyship quite early in your career, someone to hold you accountable, and also just someone to offload on in regards to that. And just keep on learning, keep on improving. There's no rush to get to the top, funnily enough, and that's probably which covered for me. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Awesome. Oh, no, I love that. No, that's awesome. Hey, thank you so much
Yeah,
for taking
that's
the
really
time.
cool.
I know you've got a lot on already. We're just super appreciative. Is there anything you want to give a plug? Anything that you're working on that you want to just quickly give a plug before we finish?
If you can download I've got an ebook that I done on my final year, I guess, thesis on DevOps and
Yes.
machine learning. It's called How the Two Worlds Collide. I kind of wrote it in a form of a Star Trek, Star Wars science fiction novel, kind of
Oh
like
my
allowing people
goodness.
to
That's
understand,
awesome.
you know,
Oh, really?
and then now coincidentally there's ML ops engineers, and I didn't go into quantum, that's for like the PhD. But yeah, if you can download that, that would be really cool.
Oh, I love that.
How
That's
the two
awesome.
worlds collide. Is that it?
We'll put that.
Cool.
We'll
We'll
put
put a link
yeah.
in
We'll
the
chuck a link
notes.
in the notes for the no. Absolutely. All right, both. We are come to the end of an episode for another week. Thank you so much for joining us, Yasmin. Everybody, thank you for listening. We will see you next week for episode 2.
Yay.
Bye. See ya. Thank you, Yasmin. Bye.